Welcome back to the All Out Fighting YouTube channel. We're here on Wembley Way. We've just watched the open workouts ahead of Anthony Joshua against Daniel Dubois. I'm Keating and I'm joined by Domin. Martin, we're going to talk about what we've seen from the two fighters in a little bit more depth first, but we've already got the sense that this is a bit of a different fight week than usual. You know, you've seen plenty of fight weeks in London before. You've even seen plenty of fight weeks at the stadium behind us. But it's a little bit different, isn't it? You saw that in there tonight. We've come away a little bit early. There's still 3 fights to come as well. We thought they might have been before the open workouts, but thankfully for us at least, they were afterwards. But things seem to be being done at least a little bit differently this time.
They are. It's very much Riyadh meets London. Obviously, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, Al Sheikh. Very big influence on boxing these days. We've seen it in Saudi Arabia. We saw it first with Tyson Fury, Francis Ngannou, then with a couple of Anthony Joshua fights, and of course Fury and Usyk in May. And now we're in London. We've done LA, and yeah, as you can see, Wembley, ultimately won't be very different on fight night, but they are trying to just do things a bit differently, make it more, I guess, more entertaining. We had fans in the open workout as normal. As you said, we've got 3 fights to come as well. I think there'll be more before the fight on Saturday night as well, more for people to do in and around Wembley. And I think it's just trying to appeal to maybe a broader fan base, but also just make it not just about what actually happens in the ring.
We saw the 2 main event stars in action tonight at the open workouts. Daniel Dubois was the one that was out first as the title holder. Did you see anything from him that maybe we weren't expecting? I mean, open workouts, quite frankly, they're just kind of almost in this day and age, they're kind of just something that the fighters have to go through in fight week, isn't it? And there's not really too many. There's 1 or 2 that do mess around and do kind of show you a southpaw stance when they're normally orthodox, but by and large. But what did you make of Daniel Dubois' open workout?
I was more interested in the beefeaters, I'll be honest. I mean, again, as we said about things being done differently, open workouts have been around for as long as boxing's been around almost, and they're very standard affairs. But even now, they did it at Wembley Arena. They had a big sort of backdrop of London, the beefeaters, the gates opened, and Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua came out. Interesting that Daniel did go first, actually, given that he's a champion. Of course, in the ring on Saturday night, he will be announced second, and we then have to wait a bit for Joshua. But it's been a long time since these workouts really could tell you very much. They are, in fact, for the fans. They're not really for us. And Daniel at least pulled the gloves on, did a bit of shadow boxing, then did hit a few pads. But ultimately, a few days out from a fight, it's unlikely they're going to slip or hurt themselves, but why on earth would they take the chance? So, it looks good for the cameras for a few minutes, but no, we didn't learn anything.
You make an important point there, though, about Daniel Dubois, the fact that he went first, even though he's the title holder. And the feeling is, around this fight at least, that he kind of feels like the B-side in it. Yet he's the one that brings the belt. It's an interesting... It kind of almost creates this siege mentality, I suppose, for him. He's the underdog, but he's the title holder. It does seem a bit strange, but maybe that's kind of the role that he's looking forward to playing again. He's done it before in his career, did it obviously with Alexander Usyk, didn't get the belt last time against him when he was the underdog in that fight. Over a year ago now, wasn't it? August 2023. But it's weird. It just doesn't seem right that you're talking about someone who is the world champion, heavyweight world champion no less, but he's the underdog in this fight.
He is the underdog, and to be honest, if he's honest, he is the B-side, and he probably knows he's the B-side. You look at Anthony Joshua, 2-time world champion, Olympic champion. He's been a professional for over a decade now. He's fought a much higher caliber of opponent than Daniel has, and if Daniel's also really honest, he's world champion, but he was interim world champion after beating Filip Hrgovic. He is only world champion because Alexander Usyk has other priorities, and that is, of course, to fight Tyson Fury again in December. So I think until Daniel Dubois defends his title, and if indeed he does defend his title, he probably deep down doesn't feel like a world champion. And Anthony Joshua is one of the biggest stars of the sport, across the world, never mind in this country. So I think if Daniel's sensible, he will just accept he is the B-side, and he'll let his hands do the talking on Saturday.
With Anthony Joshua, his open workout, again, no surprises. He's done it throughout his career where he gets in these young kids, and today it was from Finchley Boxing Club, which is where he spent a portion of his amateur career as well, trying to inspire, he was saying in his comments when he was speaking about it in the ring afterwards, trying to inspire the next generation. But that's what he does, isn't it? We know that Anthony Joshua likes to bring in the kids now, and again, you were kind of saying there earlier about the fact that why risk anything, why risk any injuries and do anything silly in your open workouts, and maybe that's what Anthony Joshua has been doing all his career, giving the opportunity to these young kids to join him and kind of experience the bright lights and everything else. But again, keeping his cards very close to his chest and ensuring that there is no slip-ups or risk of injury a couple of days out from a fight.
It is a difficult one. He's done this in Riyadh, so it's no surprise that he would do it in London. And as you said, with his old club, with the boys and girls who are currently there, it's a difficult one because you mentioned earlier, Tyson Fury will come out and do a lot of tricks. Alexander Usyk will come out and do actual tricks with tennis balls and such things, which is much more entertaining for everybody. And then you've got Anthony Joshua, who does absolutely nothing. I think he did 2 tuck jumps and some shadow boxing, probably at half pace. But you're right, he's at the level which most boxers don't ever get to, in that they can inspire people, not just in boxing but across the country. And if he wants to take that chance to do it, then who are we to complain, even if it makes for a bit of dull content.
Just talking about Anthony Joshua's mindset now going into this fight as well, and we spoke about how Daniel Dubois is the B-side, the underdog, even though he's got the belt. For Anthony Joshua, there is a hell of a lot of pressure on him, and I'm not saying that he can't cope with it. We've seen him cope with this kind of pressure before. It kind of, we were saying on the way here earlier, it almost felt like when Charles Martin came over to, I would use the word defend, but I don't think we can say he ended up doing that. In 2016, when Joshua became a world champion for the first time, that was almost an expected coronation. This feels almost the same, and that isn't to write off Daniel Dubois, but it feels like we're all expecting the same result here, that Anthony Joshua finishes that fight Saturday night as a world champion for a third time. But the weight of expectation going into it, when you are not world champion, it does feel strange. It almost feels like he is defending the belt already, even though he's not got it yet. You're
right. I think ultimately this fight is not going to go the distance. I'd be shocked if it goes the distance. And if Daniel Dubois is to win, he's not going to suddenly outbox Anthony Joshua. So if Anthony Joshua loses this fight, he probably loses this fight by being stopped. And it's hard to imagine Daniel Dubois stopping Anthony Joshua, but if that happens, it's then very hard to imagine how Anthony Joshua comes back. He's already rebuilt once in the last couple of years. He's won 4 fights back to back. You can argue about the level of opposition if you like, but he's got back to where he needs to be, and he is 2 fights away from becoming the undisputed heavyweight world champion, which a lot of people 2 years ago would have said, or 3 years ago would have said, it's just not going to happen. So there's a lot of pressure, but he doesn't look like there's under a lot of pressure. He's looked very, very calm this week, and ultimately, if you look at these 2 men on paper, Anthony Joshua should win this fight, and maybe that's just what he's thinking.
You've saved me a job there. I don't have to ask you for your prediction for this fight as well. It's not going to go the distance, and it probably is going to end up in a Joshua victory. Martin, it's the second part of the week. We had Grand Rivals Tuesday. We've obviously got this on Wednesday. We've got the press conferences on Thursday, and then obviously the weigh-ins on Friday before we're back here at Wembley on Saturday night. Hopefully the weather is like this. I must say it's magnificent here on Wembley Way as well. We're getting the last bits of summer at least. But how important is this card to the future of British boxing as well? Back at Wembley for, I think I'm right in saying I could embarrass myself and get this completely wrong, but the last time that there was a big fight night here at Wembley was the Tyson Fury against Dillian Whyte, wasn't it, in April 2022? How big is it for British boxing again to be back here with 2, again similar to that fight, 2 British fighters going for a world title as well? The depth of British heavyweights has been good for some time, and this proves it again.
It is big, and we could have 96,000 fans in there, biggest crowd ever at Wembley, even bigger than Taylor Swift. But I think what we should really think about is that we've got to enjoy these nights while we can. Yes, we had Carl Froch, George Groves at Wembley all those years ago, but really Anthony Joshua brought stadium fights back to this country, and he will not be around forever. Tyson Fury will not be around forever, and even if they're around for a couple of more years, they're probably going to fight in Saudi Arabia more often than they fight here. So it is great to have big fight boxing back at Wembley. There's not the depth to follow them just yet, especially not fighters who can sell out 96,000 seats. So let's just enjoy it while we can.
Enjoy it, we will. Martin, thank you for your time as always, really do appreciate it. And of course you can keep up to date with all the latest ahead of Anthony Joshua against Daniel Dubois across all the social platforms and the Daily Mirror website as well. But for now, it's goodbye.